Hi. Between January and March of 2026, I read 2 short story collections, 5 anthologies, and 4 novels. In this video, I'll do a brief rundown of each book. The first anthology I finished this year was called The Breath of Suspension by Alexander Jablokov. I'd read a few other stories by Jablokov that I had enjoyed before. I picked this one up, so I was looking forward to it. The Breath of Suspension has stories that range from a priest coming to grips with the choices he's made in life while running a monastery on another world, to a time travel double cross, to a doctor doubling as an exorcist. I enjoyed the stories overall and wish Jablokov was more prolific and would actually publish more collections of the 52 stories that he's published since 1985. This one was published in 1994, so it may be tough to find, but if you come across it online or in a used bookstore, it's worth getting a copy. I have a story-by-story review of the book on the channel, and I'll link it in the description below. The next collection I read was The State of the Art by Iain M, who is well known in science fiction for his culture novels. Of those, I've only read The Player of Games and Use of Weapons, so I'm not steeped in the culture of mythology, though I do have some knowledge of it. The State of the Art collection is supposedly related to the culture, and some of the 8 stories are obviously related, while others are not so obviously related. These stories were pretty much hit or miss for me, with the hits being the more obviously culture-related ones like Descendant, which is about an armored suit and its occupant trying to get to the nearest base after falling out of the sky. I also like the titular story, which is about the culture coming to Earth and trying to decide if it wants to make first contact with us or not. One story called Peace is more a Twilight Zone twist on reality than a culture story, and another piece called Scratch is purposely repetitive and really didn't convey much to me when I read it. I'll link to my story-by-story review in the description below, and that video actually tells you which ones I would advise you to skip. The first novel I read between January and March was Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's told from the viewpoint of Klara, an artificial friend, which is a humanoid robot, as she tries to be a friend and helper to her owner José, who is a child that was genetically modified but has some illness because of it. I picked this one up because so many other booktubers rave about it, and bottom line up front, I just didn't get the hype. It was an enjoyable enough story, but on the technical side, the writing style it wasn't my thing. I understand the choices Ishiguro made because of the point of view character being an artificial friend, and her mindset needed to be put across to the reader, but it just wasn't for me. Another thing that bothered me was Klara's apparent lack of knowledge about certain basic things when it was convenient to the story. For example, she's tutoring her owner José and also helping José's friend Rick with a project requiring physics, yet she doesn't know the scientific details of the sun and thinks it's a god of some sort. I mean, what? My brother and I read this and did a full discussion of it. There are spoilers in that video, so if you watch it, you're watching at your own peril if you haven't read the book yet. Another thing about that video is the audio isn't really great on it because I'm still trying to figure out some of the dual audio stuff on YouTube. Joseph Adams edited a 3-book series called the Apocalypse Triptych. The books in that are called The End Is Nigh, The End Is Now, and The End Is Come. The premise was that each mostly well-known author in the books would write 3 stories connected to the lead up to, the events during, and the aftermath of an apocalyptic event. The apocalypses ranged from asteroid strikes to plagues to overt and covert alien invasions. When I read the books, I read the entire arc that each author wrote, so I was kind of jumping between all 3 books during the read. It was easier to keep track of everything that way, and I enjoyed many of the story arcs, especially the ones by Ken Liu, which covered an AI-related scenario, Scott Sigler's alien invasion stories, David Wellington's Special Agent of the Apocalypse, and Hugh Howey's Silo-related stories. I did a whole series of videos reviewing each story arc, so I'll link to the first one in the description below. The second novel I finished in the January to March timeframe was called Thunder Rift by a guy named Matthew Farrell, and this is actually a pen name for Stephen Leigh. Thunder Rift started off with a wormhole opening in the outer part of our solar system, and the energy that it gave off fried a lot of Earth's electronics. Of course, like a curious cat, the humans wanted to know what was on the other side of the wormhole and possibly talk to the wormhole's creators. So Earth spends decades recovering from the energy blast and putting together a mission manned by military members and civilian scientists to go to the other side. All this is fairly entertaining in the first third of the book, but then they meet some aliens on the other side of the wormhole, and the book turned into what I would call sociological science fiction with really annoying character names like Makes the Sound of East Wind and Sees the Light and Cries. There was all kinds of information about the alien culture being passed to the one character that can be near them because she keeps disobeying the orders of the mission leaders. I didn't really enjoy this book, and I only finished it because I read like 5 to 10 pages a day. I couldn't deal with it in bigger chunks than that because I found the names incredibly tedious and the story just was kind of boring. Another anthology I read was the Solaris Book of New Science Fiction, Volume 2, which was edited by George Mann. This one had stories by some well-known writers like Robert Reed, who is one of my favorite short story writers, Neil Asher, who is known for his Polity Universe novels, Peter Watts, who is probably most famous for the novel Blindsight, and Michael Moorcock, who is famous for creating Elric of Meldebone or Melnibone, or however you say that word. The anthology was a mixed bag, ranging from a medieval knight trying to find out how a female merchant is so successful. Other stories have like a captain that's sad to see his ship get decommissioned because of portal technology. The last story in the book is a tongue-in-cheek examination of what first contact with alien life might be like. As with most anthologies, some stories were great and some so-so. For me, the biggest dud in it was the Michael Moorcock story, though I'm not sure if I needed to know more about Moorcock's Eternal Champion or not to understand that story. I'm not even sure if it was related to the Eternal Champion, but he was time hopping all over the place in the story, so I don't know. I'll link my story-by-story review in the description. The last two novels I read were To Your Scattered Bodies Go and The Fabulous Riverboat, which are the first two books in Philip Jose Farmer's Riverworld saga. The idea behind Riverworld is that everyone who has ever lived and died on Earth is resurrected in a new body in a mysterious, seemingly never-ending river valley on a strange planet. The valley has cliffs that close in to narrow the valley every 15 or 20 miles. This creates distinct sections along the possibly million-mile-long river. Sir Richard Francis Burton was a soldier, explorer, and writer in the 1800s, and To Your Scattered Bodies Go relates his adventures of waking up and trying to explore the river world to its end so he can figure out why everyone is taken there after death. Burton has friends with him, including an alien that may or may not be there by mistake, that help deal with the likes of less savory characters such as Nazi Hermann Göring messing up Burton's plans and getting in his way. The Fabulous Riverboat focuses on Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, and his efforts to create a riverboat powerful enough and designed properly to travel up the river to its source. Though the title is The Fabulous Riverboat, it doesn't actually exist until near the end of the book because the book is mainly about the struggle to get it built. Both books were published in 1971, and they're fairly entertaining, though you shouldn't expect too much from the female characters. They seem to be there just for the male characters to leer at, get stress relief from, or maybe to help out in the occasional battle. Both books put tribalism on full display as different factions in each section of the river try to defend their territory from anyone passing through. Reading these books may lead to some curiosity about the historical figures that Farmer worked into the story. This series is one of the classics of science fiction, and I have the last 3 books waiting on my shelf, so I'll get to them sooner or later. The final book I finished in Q1 of 2026 was the Writers of the Future Anthology, Volume 42. This is a collection of winning short stories and illustrations selected by the contest judges who are professional writers and artists themselves. I enjoyed most of the stories in this anthology. They featured a YouTuber dying and fighting to have his consciousness put into a new body, a team that can stop time in small bubbles to save people from accidents. There's a man that can enter pictures and uses the power to help police solve crimes. There's a female reporter following the life of a dragon that's captive in the Bronx Zoo. There's many other interesting characters in these stories, and the stories have really good plots, most of them. Most of the illustrations are also done by contest winners, and they are nice to look at and study in relation to the stories themselves. I'll link my full review of the anthology and the illustrations in the description, but I'll say now that it's worth a read. And that's it for Q1 of 2026. I read 11 books, and I'd say my favorite of the bunch was The Breath of Suspension short story collection by Alexander Jablokov. Of the novels, I'd have to give the nod to Your Scattered Bodies Go, with the caveat that you won't have full answers at the end of that book. I hope you enjoyed this video, and will check out more on my channel. If you haven't done so already, hit those like and subscribe buttons so I know you want to see more. Bye for now.